Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juce, and today we are reviewing The World of Aetaltis and all the books that are currently released for it. So let's get started. The World of Aetaltis has so many awesome things about it. I've been weighing how I'm going to cover this for a long time now. As I've been reading through the books, new things stand out to me all the time where I'm like, ooh, this is really good. I'm going to take it from this angle and this angle. And, I just have to be honest. There's just so much in here that I love. If you know me, I don't blow smoke up your guys' butts. I am 100% honest about what I think of things. And this setting is, in my opinion, one of the best ones out there for D&D 5th edition. It's a brand new setting. However, there's enough familiar in it that you shouldn't have a problem jumping right in. The setting itself is good versus evil. Basically, it's a world where you're kind of on the verge of darkness, starting to really take over. Certain places are starting to believe this threat is real, whereas other places don't think the threat is any worse than it's ever been. But the dark forces that are coming out into the world and creating danger are a growing presence. Now, the setting itself does take place in what is called the Amethyst Sea region, which is about the size of the Mediterranean Sea, to give you an idea for the scope of it all. And you have a lot of areas in this region that, you can explore. If you want to go to the icy north, you can. If you want to jungle in the south, you can. You could even do some seafaring in the Amethyst Sea. There's a lot of really cool things with that. You have all sorts of different playable races that are now called lineages in this setting as well. There's dark versions of these lineages that are monsters. Now, the reason they are evil is described really well within the books themselves. These were creatures that have become corrupt from the darkness and have become these evil versions of them. Some lineages have more than one dark version of them. You'll have sprites that have converted to these evil, wretched things. There's a couple versions of those. Same thing with dwarves that are now your orcs, and goblins. And the most powerful was actually the elves that are now evil. Now, of the known lineages that players can choose, it's interesting to note that humans are not native to this world. So that is something different than most games, I feel. You do see you have dwarves, you have your elves, you have halflings, you have all those things that you would expect. You have I think it's Chibots. Those are a very interesting looking lineage. And there's a lot of interesting lore around them. You can mix cultures and lineages as well. So cultures are what they kind of grew up in. And so then you can take some traits of the different things and apply that to, say, a dwarf or an elf. Maybe you're an elf that grew up in Chibot colonies your whole life. And so you're a little bit more colorful and over the top with what you wear. You're maybe a fashionista or a merchant or whatever. And so those things kind of come across really well because of your culture, more so than your lineage. But you would still have some of the more physical traits of your lineage. Character creation in and of itself has a lot of different layers as well. You've got some differences to D&D 5e. Now, you can play a D&D 5e character in Aetaltis straight out of the book if you want. It's perfectly balanced. We had Mark Tassin on for an interview, and we discussed that a little bit. If you want to check that out, click the link up here. You can go back and check out that. It was about an hour and 15-minute interview. Fantastic interview. We talked about all sorts of things about Aetaltis, where it came from, how he came up with it, all that stuff. People who have worked on the projects and his goals for it moving forward. And we also talked about other tabletop RPG topics. So again, click that link and check that out. Now, character creation is different in a lot of ways. You're going to choose a lineage. You're going to choose, your background, your culture, your calling, which is why you are adventuring. This is the thing that draws your characters into adventuring. And it's really interesting. I love it. I also love the amount of role tables there are for, your characters. For example, what was your childhood like? What is it like when you started adventuring? So basically, you roll for how things are your first session as you start to adventure. What happens when you do different, like, there's just so many tables. I can't even begin to express it. But there are tables for almost everything. And if you know me, especially if you are one of my patrons, I absolutely love random roll tables. You can see the amount of research that went into this setting when it comes to prices and things like that of different items, the economies. There are rules that are optional in the Game Master's Guide for how to create your own counterfeit coin business. There are rules for all sorts of things in these books. Again, all optional. You can run, for example, spellcasters exactly how they are in 5e, or you can really dive into using essence points and things like that, which I think is really cool. Now, the idea is you can spend essence points, which each character has a certain amount of essence. It allows you to do your magic and things like that. It's kind of like mana, except it's your spirit. It's your life's essence. It is what you are. And so when you use all your essence points up, casting spells and stuff, you can actually draw upon your own hit points to continue to use essence points. Each essence point is worth 1 hit point. So a very cool concept. Really allows you to do things that you couldn't normally do. You might be a first level character and you're trying to cast spells that are, not necessarily at your disposal yet, but with essence points, you are able to do it. You're able to cast a fireball. You're able to do these over the top things that might save your party from a really dangerous situation. So again, very cool optional rules in that Game Master's Guide. The Adventurer's Guide is just full of lore, no mechanics in there. I really love how it was written. You've got little blurbs on the side from adventurers and scholars and things like that that I think add a little bit of flavor to each write-up on a section. Sometimes they contradict the section and say, well, that's not what I was told when I grew up. And, just really interesting back and forth conversation in the side panel. So I like that. In the books where it does have optional rules in the Game Master's Guide, there are some really cool little side notes too about how to use them as well, which I also like that. There are Endrori, which are completely evil creatures that are based on the Endrori are basically everything evil about them. Nothing good, nothing redeeming. They wanted it to be very clear cut. You see these things, get rid of them, whatever way possible. They didn't want you to have to juggle like, oh, is it bad if we do this or not? Again, they're not redeemable. There's nothing in them that can be turned into good or anything like that. If you want to touch on gray morality with the regular lineages, the NPCs in the towns, things like that, you can still do that. But this one type of creature is not like that. Now, if you still want to try, you can still try to negotiate and things like that. However, in order to do so, you need to show that you are superior to them from a combat perspective or intimidation or, things like that. They will negotiate if they think the odds are stacked against them. However, they will also stab you in the back the first chance they get the chance to, because again, they don't care. They don't respect honor. They don't respect any of that stuff. They don't respect anybody at all. They're just terrible creatures. So I kind of like that. And it's its own thing. It's not the orcs in here. It's not goblins. It's none of that. It's its own type of creature. So again, I really like that. Now, there are some creatures in this setting that I absolutely love. There's like a crypt beetle thing that I just love it. It's only got 1 hit point. But some of the things about it that I love are the fact that it bites you. The next turn, it's burrowing in under your skin to eat your bones. Your friends can hit it. However, if they miss, they hit you, and you take damage. And that only goes up and up and up as your friends are trying to help you. Absolutely love that creature. There's also like a small like worm creature. It's a tiny creature that can swim. I think it's called a reaver or something. It swims through rock, hard, mountainous rock. It just swims through it, not burrows. It swims. Now, obviously, it is burrowing, but it can move through it effortlessly. And it senses where people are, and then it jumps out and bites you. And if it bites you, it latches onto you. If you hit it, it will then let go on its turn and go back into the wall and hide before it can ambush you again. Dumb creature, just survives to eat, will fight to the death, but it's a really interesting concept. So there's some really cool monsters in this setting that you can get the stat blocks in the Game Master's Guide. I am so inspired by the Aetaltis setting. There's so many different things when I've been reading this. I'm like, oh, that would be really cool. Ooh, I would love to run a game around this area. Things like that. I've never read the Wheel of Time books. However, the TV series, they went to this dark city in the series. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there were like magical items there, and there's like shadowy creatures, and you could just tell it's a very eerie, dangerous place. And there's the old capital in Aetaltis that is also kind of like it reminds me of that. It's obviously not like it, but it reminded me of that when I watched that series. And so for me, I was inspired as soon as I was reading about it. And this is a hub where adventurers go to get magical items and treasure and to test themselves as adventurers. They can go as deep as they want under this old capital. There's all sorts of things you can do just with that one location. And there's locations like this and others that are sprinkled throughout the setting, just around this Amethyst Sea region, again, the size of the Mediterranean Sea, that I think, again, are just full of rich stories to be told. The gods in Aetaltis represent different domains, and they have like boons and stuff that they can provide to your players. Now, there are cards for these different boons that you can order, and the rules for how to do this are in the Game Master's Guide, I believe, if I remember correctly. So, you can have cards that make it easy to remember, things like that. For example, this top card right here. Play this card when you want to change something minor in the story, but can't come up with a good reason. And name an action you took earlier in the campaign. That action is bound to this moment through the threads of fate, and it becomes the valid reason, no matter how illogical. The avatar is Tassos the Weaver. It's a Ziva's fate, and it says, Disart had never dreamed the dirty urchin he tossed a coin to a year ago in Dinford was the prince in disguise. Taking his seat at the king's table, he gives thanks to Zeus for the strange web fate weaves. That's kind of an interesting tie. I love that. They did a nice deed back in the day, and it happened to be the same prince. So the cards come in, again, they're themed color-wise based on who they represent and things like that. So that's pretty cool as well. Now, the Game Master's Guide does have, again, different rules and stuff in it, but it allows your players to role play as the gods themselves. The other thing you can also order is the DM screens online. So you're going to need to get yourself a DM screen that you can insert things into. But you've got all that. It even has art, so very good stuff there. So when it comes to these books, it might seem like a lot because there are 6 currently out at the time I'm recording this. There is also a novel called, I believe, Champions of Aetaltis. The Adventurer's Guide, again, is where you're going to get all the lore. I recommend starting there to read it, especially if you're going to DM this world. And heck, maybe you buy these things not to run it in this world. Maybe you're buying it just to add to your own homebrew world or whatever, which is perfectly acceptable. And there's enough in here that I think you can take a lot of ideas and make them your own. There's a lot of mechanical things in here that, again, you can take and spruce up your own home games. So if you just are looking for inspiration, possible rules, new classes, new lineages, backgrounds, things like that, you can do that. And again, I think you're going to get a lot from these books. The Player's Guide, again, has a lot of really good stuff in it. It also has some of the optional things in there. Again, a lot of these new lineages, also known as races in DnD5e, are, again, really interesting. They have new ones like the Chibot. You're also going to have things like sprites. So if that's something you want to play, or maybe you've had a player who wants to play something like that, you've got that in there. You've got cultures. You've got, again, the random roll tables for like your character's background and stuff that I think are really, really cool. So yes, the Player's Handbook, really good, really, really good. The Adventurer's Guide is really good. So I would start with getting the Adventurer's Guide, the Player's Guide, and the Game Master's Guide. I would read the Adventurer's Guide first if you are thinking of running a game in this setting. I would then read the Player's Guide, and last I would read the Game Master's Guide. The reason I say this is because I think the Adventurer's Guide is going to really bring you up to speed on the setting. If you want to read the Player's Guide first, that makes sense too, because there's enough in there about at least the lineages and stuff for you to learn a little bit before you dive into the actual deeper lore. But again, the Adventurer's Guide is going to get you excited to really dive into this world, I feel. If you want to read the novel, read the novel. I haven't really dabbled with that much. But I would recommend picking that up if you are somebody who is inspired by seeing other stories told in a world. Maybe that will do it for you over there. The other 2 books that I haven't spent too much time with, I'll be honest, it's The Heroes of Thornwall and Dunbury Castle. Dunbury Castle is going to be a specific location where you can have all sorts of adventure around this location. So it's kind of like in your old Keep on the Borderlands, you had the keep, and then you had adventure all around it. If you're somebody who likes that idea where you kind of could have a home base, stuff like that, then this is a good book for that. It's got NPCs. It's got all sorts of stuff centered around that. It's going to tell you about the region. You're just going to have all sorts of good stuff just from this book alone. So maybe the whole lore of the setting, maybe that's not for you, but maybe you want to dive into something like this. Again, a great book for that. So this one, very similar to Dunbury Castle. You're going to have a setting. You're going to have all sorts of information about the area, the town of Thornwall. You're going to have NPCs, some adventures in there that you can do. So again, that's a really good book as well if that's the kind of material you're looking for. So again, you can get a lot of stuff. And these books, these are not small books. Like these are, 5e Player's Handbook plus a few pages, I think. So just to give you an idea of size. 150 pages there. And 170 180 pages in that one. So again, good sized books, well worth it. Something I also want to mention that is going on right now is the Player's Guide actually has a sale on their PDF this week. You can get it at almost a steal. So go check it out. If you want to check out the PDF first, you can do that. And then later on, purchase the hardcovers. I'm a big hardcover book person. Yeah, if you're asking me my thoughts on this setting, I think this is up there as one of the best, if not the best, 5e setting. It's your typical good versus evil. It's a world that feels like it's on the brink of something really bad happening. And, you know, you've got some people who are taking it serious, others that aren't. Some who think it's, you know, this is just the way it is and it always has been and always will be ever since the cataclysm and things like that. So, you know, it's got magic. It's your typical fantasy world. It adapts perfectly to 5e, I feel. Again, if your players just want to use 5e rules and play in this setting, you can. The big thing is, you know, really just having a world that you can have a good time in. Again, some of the player lineages I think are fascinating. Gives you new options there. Some of the optional rules, for example, some of the optional rules I didn't touch on is using your shield as a reaction, which is very, very interesting. It's very similar to kind of how Pathfinder 2nd Edition does shields, to be honest. There's also resistance rules that layer onto armor. So some armors are resistant to certain types of damage. You know, so that is kind of interesting because then it makes it more tactical in what kind of weapons you have and what weapons you use against certain armor types. And I love that. And that's pretty easy to keep track of. You know, so again, there's a lot of good things. And I have no doubt in my mind that you will be inspired by these books, by the Aetaltis setting, by the rules, by some of the new player options. There's a lot to unpack. Right now, they are running a Kickstarter for their new book. Right here. This is their new Kickstarter right now. It's Guardians of Agthor. I am going to play the video here and let you guys decide if this is something you're interested in. Head on over. It does only stick around on Kickstarter for the next week or so from the time I'm recording this. So please head on over, support them. They're about halfway to their goal. I would love to see this reach its funding goal because, again, I love these books. I already know this is going to be fantastic. Mark Tassin has been in the industry for many years, and he would not put out a bad product, especially one that is tied to him so closely. So please head on over and support Mark Tassin, Mechanical Muse, and all the wonderful staff there. So again, head on over, check him out, support him because we need more people like Mark Tassin. We need more companies like Mechanical Muse in our industry. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this, and I will see you guys next time. Game on.